Next, we are going to work on the search functionality of our Cineflix project. So here in this application, we also have this search text box. So for example, here, if I search for Inter and when I click on this search button, it should search all the movies whose name contains Inter in it. So we want to implement this search functionality. Now to implement this search functionality, let me copy this comment from here. Let's paste it here and let's provide a comment. Okay, and the first thing which we are going to do is first we are going to get access to the search movie button. So if I scroll up, here we have the search button and the ID for this search button is search movie button. So first of all, from our JavaScript code, we are going to get access to that search button. For that, again, let's say document dot get element by ID. Here, let's pass the ID of the search button, which is search movie button. And on that, we are going to call the add event listener method. So basically here, we want to add an event listener for the click event. And whenever the click event happens, we want to call a function. And here I'm going to call that function as search movies. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's create this function. So for that, I'm going to use this function keyword. Let's create that function. So remember that here we have added a click event listener on this search button. So whenever this search button will be clicked, it is going to call this search movies function. Now inside this search movies function, the first thing which we are going to do is we are going to read the search text. So for example, if I type enter here and when this search button is clicked, first we are going to read this value. And to read that value again, we are going to get access to this input element. So for that, I'm again going to use its ID. Okay, let's copy this ID. Let's go to our JavaScript code and there let's use document.getElementById by ID method. And there let's pass the ID of the search text box. And in this way, we will have access to this search text box. Now here we want to read the value entered in this search text box. So on that, we can call this value property of that input element. So it should be value. Okay. And whatever value we are going to read from here, from this text box, let's store it in a variable and let's call it search text. Here I'm using let keyword, but if you want, you can also use const keyword. So let me also use const keyword. Now, once we have this search text, what we want is we want to loop over each movie object which we have in the movies array. And from that movie object, we want to filter those movies whose name contains that search text. So here we are going to loop over the movies array. And for that, we are going to call the filter method. Now using this filter method, we want to loop over each movie object in this movies array. And we want to filter those movies whose name contains this search text in it. So let's pass a callback function here. So for each iteration, let's say we are going to receive a movie object. So we have learned that this filter method will loop over each element of the movies array. And for each iteration, to the first parameter of the callback function, which we pass to this filter method, it is going to assign the current element. For the first iteration, this filter function will assign the first movie object from this movies array to this movie parameter. For the second iteration, it will assign the second movie object to this movie parameter and so on. Here we can also specify the second index and the ARR parameter, but since we are not going to use it in the callback function body, I'm not specifying that. Now, once we have the movie object, we are going to check if that movie, so each movie object has a name. Let's first convert that name to lowercase. For that, I'm using this to lowercase method. And then after converting the name to lowercase, now we are going to use the includes method. And we are going to check if the movie name includes this search text. So whichever movie includes that search text, that will be filtered by this filter method. And This filter method, it is going to return us a new array, and in that array we will have all the filtered movies. So let's create a variable and let's call it as filtered or maybe searched movies. You can name it anything. So here this filter method is going to filter all the movies whose name contains the search text in it, and it is going to return us a new array with the filtered movies. Once we have all the filtered movies, I mean all the searched movies, what we want is we want to re-render the UI and only display the searched movies. So for that, again, we are going to call this render all movies function, and to that we are going to pass this searched movies. All right, and this should be it. Let's save the changes. Here, let me search for IN. So with these two characters, we have two movies, Interstellar and Inception. So these two movies should be searched. If I click on the search button, you will see that only those two movies are being displayed here. If I say AH and search, there is only one movie which has this AH in it. So that has been filtered here. So the search functionality is working as expected. If I search for boys and if I click on the search button, that movie whose name contains boys in it, that has been searched here. Okay, and if we clear everything and click on the search button, it should display all the movies. So in this way, the search functionality is also working. And to implement this search functionality, we have used the filter method for filtering the movies, and we have used this includes method for searching. So we are searching all those movies whose name includes the search text. So in that case, this includes method will return true for those movies whose name contains search text in it. And since this includes method is going to return a Boolean value, if it returns true, the filter method will filter that movie object. If this includes method returns false, this filter method will not filter that movie object. All right. So this is all I wanted to cover in this lecture. If you have any questions from this lecture, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.